Timism, greener than green. Of the organized political parties, the one which most overlaps the proposed better democracy and capitalism is the Green Party. Of course, one political cartoonist noted the difference between being the Green Party in name and fact. It has 10 points, which are posted on most, if not all, Green Party websites. While the 10 points are applaudable, they do not have the unity provided in theory and practice by the timistic clutter cutter. As problem-solving tools, they lack the final 2 steps provided by democratic capitalism, brain bees and life hours. Online spelling or brain bees to let people organize themselves, independent of any political leadership. Life hour tax credits to let people reward themselves for problem-solving time in the ultimate, absolute currency that transcends the boundaries of centuries and nations. Principle: respect for diversity. We must honor cultural, ethnic, racial, sexual, religious, and spiritual diversity within the context of individual responsibility to all beings. We must reclaim our country's finest shared ideals, the dignity of the individual, democratic participation, and liberty and justice for all. Diversity. In principle, democracy is blind to the subjective limits of age-old bigotry. Democracy is a moral compass. Diversity. In practice at timism.com, the objective, matter-of-fact issue presentation of online spelling bees institute ultimate respect for diversity. You judge the idea before you know the individual, not the traditional other way around. Diversity. People will come to accept diversity when they see it enriching their lives from different people. All 20,000 plus initial forums at Timism for private and public policy making show only the issue of the provider. Diversity. When people have drunk from these vessels of information on the altar of problem solving, they will often realize that the quencher of thirst was one who they thought to have a draught of knowledge. Social justice. We must respond to human suffering in ways that promote dignity. We must encourage people to commit themselves to lifestyles that promote their own health. We must have a community-controlled education system that effectively teaches our children academic skills, ecological wisdom, social responsibility, and personal growth. We must resolve personal and intergroup conflicts without just turning them over to lawyers and judges. We must take responsibility for reducing the crime rate in our neighborhoods. We must encourage such values as simplicity and moderation. Social justice. Injustices and indignities come from ignorance of others. Better democracy will raise social awareness and justice. The level of civility in a person, people, or nation is tied to the level of democracy. Social justice. If a country has a public solving process that complements the quantity and quality of its problems, optimal democracy, the people will live a less stressful, time-free life. Social justice. Complementing the inevitable benefits of online spelling bees is the goal of 24 and 4. By better organizing our human resources, we can have a 24-hour work week in 4 years with more disposable time and money for self, family, and community. Social justice. When people have time to smell the rose and question the good life, they will see how they have been trampling underfoot the flowers in the garden of life. Grassroots democracy. We must develop systems that allow and encourage us to control the decisions that affect our lives. We must ensure that representatives will be fully accountable to the people who elected them. We must encourage and assist the mediating institutions, family, neighborhood organizations, church group, voluntary association, ethnic club, to recover some of the functions now performed by the government. We must learn the best insights from American traditions of civil vitality, voluntary action, and community responsibility. Grassroots democracy. With 20,000 online spelling bees from the local to the global for both public and private, this a new level of grassroots democracy to allow people to not only work and shop from home, but also vote, lead, and govern from home. Feminism. We must replace the cultural ethics of dominance and control with more cooperative ways of interacting. We must encourage people to care about persons outside their own group. We must promote the building of respectful, positive, and responsible relationships across the lines of gender and other divisions. We must proceed with as much respect for the means as the end, the process as much as the product of our efforts. We must learn to respect the contemplative inner part of life as much as the outer activities. Feminism. Humanity has been repeatedly shortchanged by male-dominated public policymaking, which takes the short view of goals rather than the longer view more common in females. The most profitable solution, literally and figuratively, is women 50-50. Community-based economics. We must design our work structures to encourage employee ownership and workplace democracy. We must develop new economic activities and institutions that will allow us to use our new technologies in ways that are humane, freeing, ecological, and accountable and responsive to communities. We must establish some form of basic economic security, open to all. We must restructure our patterns of income distribution to reflect the wealth created by those outside the formal monetary economy, those who take responsibility for parenting, housekeeping, home gardens, community volunteer work, etc. We must restrict the size and concentrated power of corporations without discouraging superior efficiency or technological innovation. Community-based economics. Timism establishes in theory and practice the import of the life hour as the ultimate wealth that is created by people solving problems. Democratic capitalism organizes and rewards people in quantified units. Life hours can be recorded and traded from any computer connected to internet. They can be used for loans or tuition. There can be no better community-based economics than one in which human currency is created simultaneously with the solution of a time-wasting problem that has an absolute literal profit, forward time. The blood of an economy should be owned directly by the people who create and bleed it. Decentralization. We must reduce power and responsibility to individuals, institutions, communities, and regions. We must encourage the flourishing of regionally based culture rather than a dominant monoculture. We must have a decentralized democratic society with our political, economic, and social institutions locating power on the smallest scale, closest to home, that is efficient and practical. We must redesign our institutions so that fewer decisions and less regulation over money are granted as one moves from the community to the national level. We must reconcile the need for community and regional self-determination with the need for appropriate centralized regulation in certain matters. Decentralization. If we can use computers to work and shop from home, we can use them to vote and govern home. goal of democratic capitalism. Optimal democracy elects executives to execute the laws and to handle emergencies. The proposed citizen legislation process will provide a problem solver's pipeline to Congress, which responds only to the problems of re-election. Ecological wisdom. We must operate human societies with the understanding that we are part of nature, not on top of it. We must live within the ecological and resource limits of the planet, applying our technological knowledge to the challenge of an energy-efficient economy. We must build a better relationship between cities and countryside. We must promote sustainable agriculture and respect for self-regulating natural systems, and we must further biocentric wisdom in all spheres of life. The oil droughts show that energy crises and environmental damage is more than widely understood. Global warming has been preceded by local warming. The greatest tragedy of the 20th century was not the Holocaust, gulags, or killing fields. Nonviolence. We must develop effective alternatives to our current patterns of violence at all levels, from the family and the street to nations and the world. We must eliminate nuclear weapons from the face of the earth without being naive about the intentions of other governments. We must constructively use nonviolent methods to oppose practices and policies with which we disagree, and in the process reduce the atmosphere of polarization and selfishness that is itself a source of violence. Nonviolence. When people have hope of a safer, and secure future, they will be patient. When people have their problems solved, they will have more time to reflect on their actions. Personal and global responsibility. We must be of genuine assistance to grassroots groups in the third world. We must help other countries make the transition to self-sufficiency in food and other basic necessities. We must cut our defense budget while maintaining an adequate defense. We must promote these 10 green values in the reshaping of our global order. We must reshape world order without creating just another enormous nation-state. The universality of the Internet, when used with timistic vision of humanity for the third millennium, people will be able to think and act global from the local. With better democracy and capitalism, we will witness the dissolution of the state. Future focus. We must induce people and institutions to think in terms of the long-range future, and not just in terms of their short-range selfish interest. We must encourage people to develop their own visions of the future and move more effectively toward them. Timism is a vision of humanity based on a periodic table of existence, of which the periodic table of elements is a subset. For individuals, timism provides guidelines for uniting one's spiritual morality and immortality with one earthly mores and morality. Profitable lives on all levels of self-actualization can be realized with the timistic clutter cutter. The unification of the symbols of our time with the substance of our time, life hours, will shape economic unity. Human wealth will not be tied to symbols which can be stolen by legalized inflation or legalized enslavement. Human wealth and worth will be tied to the substance of one's problem solving.